With travel restrictions opening up and it being easier to travel, you might be overwhelmed with how to kickstart your travel bug again. You may be worried that travel is now incredibly expensive post-pandemic.
But fear not, we have some travel tips for you so that you can successfully travel on a shoestring. Of course, all travel planning starts with buying the ticket. You may think this is the most expensive part of the trip, so here are some ways you can save on ticket prices. First of all, always check the flights in incognito mode. Those cookies are going to track all your searches for flights otherwise and jack up the prices.
I often find that using price comparison sites such as Skyscanner means that I can get the cheapest flight possible, even cheaper than booking directly through the airline. And one thing I really like about these travel comparison websites, and it's even possible to do on Google, is a price alert. Here, you input your email address and the website will alert you anytime the price goes up or down.
This way, you can try and get an even cheaper price. Some days of the week tend to be cheaper than others. Monitor your alerts and see what works best. Flying direct can often work out quite a fair bit more expensive than if you have any connecting flights.
Whilst connecting flights might be a bit of a pain, they could save you hundreds of dollars off your tickets. If you don't mind and are traveling through countries with multiple cities and airports, consider connecting flights to save a bit of cash. Here's an idea. If you're not sure where you want to travel to, but you still want to travel on a budget, you could use comparison websites or Google to search for flights and choose the starting location of Singapore. In the destination, you can choose anywhere and search for price lowest to highest. That way, if you'd like to try something new and exciting, you can make sure that it's within your budget.
Do take note of travel restrictions. Some countries have completely dropped all of their COVID restrictions, such as the UK, whereas some countries like Hong Kong or Macau have still got very strict rules implemented. This may mean further costs for you. If you want to save on swab tests, you can choose a country that has a little bit more lenient restrictions. Next, I want to talk about preparation. Fail to prepare or prepare to fail. There are some things that you can do that will minimize your spending costs whilst you are on a holiday. Of course, the most important thing is to make sure that your passport is still valid. Generally, you can only travel if you have at least 6 months validity left on your passport. At the moment, after the pandemic, there is quite a backlog on renewing your passport, so make sure to get this sorted quickly.
When it comes to currency, there are a couple of great hacks that I frequently use whilst traveling to make sure that I don't get ripped off with exchange rates. First of all, change your currency in Singapore before you leave on your travels. Avoid changing your Singapore dollars in your travel destination country, as this exchange rate will not be favourable to you. Lots of currency exchanges overseas choose their own rates of exchange and can often take advantage of unsuspecting tourists.
You may have heard people say that if you travel anywhere in Southeast Asia or South America, you can use US dollars as your spending money. Respectively, you can use euros in any non-EU country in Europe. I would strongly discourage listening to this advice. Yes, it is easier for you to carry one currency, and you can definitely use these currencies abroad. But unless you are going to America or somewhere in the EU, other countries that use these currencies can massively rip you off.
Because it's inconvenient for them to hold onto this foreign currency, the exchange rate is normally very much at a disadvantage to you, meaning that you're paying a premium just for the convenience of having one type of currency with you. And in my opinion, that's not worth it. If you ever get stuck and have run out of cash whilst in a foreign country, it's always a good idea to have an international bank card to hand. Most ATMs abroad will charge you for withdrawing using a foreign bank card, So if you use your Singapore card overseas, you could be charged a fortune. I use a Monzo International Bank card, and it's linked to my UK bank account, but I can withdraw from any ATM overseas and will not be charged. There are similar companies that you can get a bank card from in Singapore, like Revolut or Wise. These cards are so handy to have on you and work by topping up from your main bank account. And I think that this is great because if you keep your bank balance low on these cards, it's not so risky if you lose them overseas.
They also come with very useful apps that you can access with ease. Meaning, if you lose your card whilst on holiday, you can freeze it without having a visit to a bank branch or calling an international hotline. Speaking of hotlines, a lot of people will often buy a SIM card in the country that they are visiting and use that for the duration of their holiday. Instead of doing this, I recommend renting a Wi-Fi box. This portable device comes with you during your whole trip and works almost like a mini router.
You can connect multiple devices to it, so if you're traveling in a group, you don't need to rent more than one. This works out to be a lot more cost effective than everyone buying their own SIM card, and I don't know about you, but I feel a bit nervy taking out my SIM card whilst I'm abroad. It would be just my luck that I would lose it. And of course, nowadays, we need a lot more extra paperwork than we previously did when traveling. So, from my experience, I would say it's best to have all these documents, such as your vaccine certificate, to be notarized and printed out when you travel. Most airlines will accept soft copies on your phone, but I always think it's best to carry a hard copy in case your phone battery runs out or you've got no signal. Generally, you will need your vaccine certificate, boarding passes, proof of travel insurance with COVID insurance, and a passenger locator form for the country you're traveling to. You may also need to print out any proof of swab tests.
My final tip for preparation is a small one, but it can actually save you some money every time you travel. I would recommend bringing with you your own travel blanket, travel towel, and a travel pillow. Reason being is that you can find these things very cheap in some department stores or even value stores across Singapore.
A lot of airlines actually charge you for using a blanket or a pillow, especially if you're traveling on a budget airline like I often do to save money. Some hostels that you stay at might not even provide towels and things like this, so it's always best to have your own. This means that you don't have to keep repurchasing every time you go abroad.
Next up, I want to tell you some ways where you can save money during the itinerary of your trip. Instead of hotels, hostels are of course a much cheaper option and come with the added perks of meeting new people whilst you are traveling. If you don't like the idea of sharing a room with strangers, most hostels will have private rooms available that are still a lot cheaper than if you were to book a hotel.
Something I love about hostels is that you can generally book a lot of trips and excursions through the front desk staff. They often have tie-ups with a lot of travel companies, meaning that your trips out and about might be a lot cheaper than if you were going to go and source for these things yourself. A lot of hostels I've traveled to also put on events for people staying there, like parties, quizzes, free drinks at the bar, and different kinds of meetup activities. Not only is this a great way to meet like-minded people, but it also means that you can have a very fun, cheap night out or in at the hostel itself. Not only that, you might also meet people at the hostel that you decide to go traveling with further, enhancing your backpacking experience and meaning that you get to meet people from all walks of life.
Hostels may also be able to organize drivers and transportation for you, but if they don't, try and download taxi hailing apps. This generally works out to be cheaper than hailing a cab, and in some countries it's a lot safer as well. If you're going to be traveling to multiple locations in the same country or even cross-country like Europe, instead of booking flights in between each location, consider getting coaches or trains. This works out to be a lot cheaper and definitely an amazing backpacking experience.
I would definitely recommend, if you ever get the opportunity to do so, to take an overnight train to your next location. It's definitely a memorable experience with beautiful views and the chance to meet and mingle with the locals.
Now that things are starting to feel like they used to, I hope this video can inspire you on your next trip.
Enjoy traveling on a shoestring. Remember, it's about the journey, not the final destination.